This is the tale of how I tried and failed to walk the Cape Wrath Trail. I'd already walked the Cape Wrath Trail in winter 2018 over 22 days, and 7 years later I fancied having a crack again at this amazing walk, one of the toughest and most remotest walks in the British mainland. So I waved goodbye to the ferry, and that feeling of remoteness drifted back to me as I knew that there was no way back to Fort William.
It feels really good to be walking the Cape Wrath Trail again.
This was a different kind of walk for me. It was very different from walking in winter, and this time I could really enjoy the wildlife and nature.
I'm here just to learn what this place has to teach me next. This time it's more like summer, early summer. I'm expecting to do it in about 2 weeks this time, 15 days.
Little did I know that was not going to happen. After just 30 miles, I had the worst food poisoning symptoms of my life.
I'm really excited to find out what happens.
Unknowing the peril which awaited me, I enjoyed some summer foraging.
So just here are some wild blueberry plants. They're like a small shrub. There's nothing on these right now, which is sad. But if you know to look, you will find it. This section just before Cona Glen was beautiful because there's just rhododendron flowers all the way down, buzzing with bees. On that walk, it just had purples, pinks, all the way down, stunning. So now I've walked along the shore, and there is now the big turning up into Cona Glen.
Some stones mark the first descent up into Cona Glen, and I just started to feel like this walk was becoming a lot more wild again. You know, starting to see some beautiful Highland cattle, very nonchalantly, just kind of watching me walk past. And yeah, seeing the vastness of the glen with little toads and other wildlife just kind of nestled around. So you can really zoom in and zoom out of this place and just keep seeing really cool stuff. Cona Glen actually winds up really broadly, and there's a lovely river running through it, the River Cona, which is really quite dramatic at points. There is a bothy, and I sat down just to chill out there and scratch my midgy legs and just kind of check them out.
12k to Glenfinnan, I think. It's a private bothy. It's locked. It has a gas boiler in there, running water, but yeah, no, can't go in there. But it's a bit too early in the day to sleep anyway, so yeah, it's looking pretty wild now, and that's what I was really surprised by when I did Cape Wrath the first time, was once you get off that long road along the shore and you turn up into Cona Glen, you're in the wild straight away. And the West Highland Way, I think, doesn't really have that. There's still a lot of civilization around throughout the whole walk, really. But here, I'm really on my own. I haven't seen a person since turning off that road. I saw several cars, I saw one hiker who'd driven in, but there's no one here. It's a very special place. And it's like this for the whole walk.
So everything was going great. It was a beautiful landscape. I felt fit and well, and then suddenly I was laid out on the ground. I'm not entirely sure what happened at this point, but I just ran out entirely of energy. I almost fell asleep there and then, so I decided to put a sleeping bag over myself and decide what to do next. I wasn't sure what had happened, but I took some glucose, which made me feel a bit better, and I made my way over the mountain pass.
I climbed 40 metres up to the mountain pass. It's like a saddle between two peaks, and when I passed this before in winter, it was snow covered, it was really cold, and it was a wind tunnel. You just got like the northwesterly wind coming straight through here from over there, and it was cold. Luckily the wind is coming from the east, so when I came through the saddle, I was in the shelter again, so that was great. I'm tired. I can't really speak too much. I'm going downhill. I can see some trees down there.
So this was just the first day of my Cape Wrath attempt number 2, and it hadn't really gone to plan. I actually contracted food poisoning and was pretty sick. I did manage to make it down off the hill. The terrain was pretty rough and boggy, as you can see. But yeah, I did get down to Glenfinnan in the end. I remembered a lot of the track through here. It seemed very memorable because this was kind of the first wild kind of part of the trail. Lovely terrain. Started to feel like, yes, I'm back in the wild, but actually I need to get to safety. So that was a kind of mixed bag of feelings right there.
Well, I've made it off of that hill, and that was really a strange experience because I went from feeling absolutely fine to, oh my god, I can barely walk. I really had no strength. But yeah, I just laid under my sleeping bag for 10 minutes. Felt like I was going to go to sleep, and that didn't feel right because it was cold up there and windy. I think had I fallen asleep. Yeah, you got one problem of feeling very tired, and then you got another problem of feeling very cold after a while, and then you got big problems after that. So I decided to keep going down this lovely track. It's nice now, it's back on the track. Starting to feel a bit more sick again. I made my way down to the bottom of the track where the only crossing across the loch had been closed by the Forestry Authority. So I had to decide, do I go across this boardwalk or find another way around? I decided to go for it. Oh shit, this looks really annoying. So without going into all the gory details, I had some stomach issues here with some nausea and diarrhea. I had to make it across this bridge, which was actually perfectly fine. There were just a few loose boards here and there, but otherwise it was absolutely great. There was no problem there. Yeah, just gotta get off the bridge now. Seemed fine. Lovely place, ancient woodland. Adgor Island. Beautiful. Glenfinnan was just around the corner, and there was a freshwater tap there for walkers, which was awesome. And then I decided to make it past the Glenfinnan Viaduct towards the Bothy, where I could rest up. I cut the footage there, speaking a few days later. Basically, I became really unwell. I had diarrhea and vomiting. By the time I crossed that broken bridge, I just could barely walk. And I decided at that point, could I camp or could I continue to the Bothy, where I knew there was going to be a kettle, and at least I might have a chance of sleeping as well. So that's what I did. And that took over an hour to get just 5 kilometers down the trail. I made it. So obviously I didn't film going into the Bothy because there were people there, and I thought that would be disrespectful, and I bedded down, but I was running out, being sick all night. So I decided to take another day there. There was a fella there. He was an interesting guy. We got a bit bored. We found a broken chair in the Bothy and we decided to try and repair it. And then he had the bright idea, could we turn it into something a bit more interesting? So we made a little swing in the Bothy, and here's how it looked. Really scary. Musical. Like a rubber band music machine.
We created an instrument.
It's modern art.
Yeah.
That's wicked. Thank you.
I kind of wondered what the next person would think when they walked into the bothy and saw a swinging chair. Totally random. So I stayed another 24 hours and slept overnight. Started to feel better by the evening, but then in the morning, it all came back, and it actually came back much worse. I actually sat under a tree outside thinking, oh shit, I'm going to have to walk back today or tomorrow. And then the estate keeper drove past in his Land Rover. So I flagged him down, said, look, could you give me a lift out to the glen? And he obliged, and he was really nice, and took me to the bus stop. The bus arrived 10 minutes later. I was back in Fort William in 15 minutes. So it was honestly a huge blessing, because I was becoming really unwell. Once I was in Fort William, I had to decide what to do next. Fort William was saturated with tourists, so there's nowhere to sleep there. I decided to get a bus out into the wilds and wild camp out somewhere out of town. A really nice lady called Jamie gave me a lift in her van. She was supporting someone doing the Ramsey Round, the fell running challenge. In the end, I found a decent enough camping spot and settled down.
I'm really having to think about whether I want to continue this walk or not. Not sure yet. I'm going to have to give it a night. I'm still feeling a little unwell, so I need to give it more time, I think, more fluids, and hopefully some food tomorrow.
So with a heavy heart, I decided to call off the adventure, and I returned to Fort William the next day. And as I looked across the harbour, I was met by an old friend who had turned up to take me home. So there's a bit of a backstory here. The paddle steamer Waverley is the oldest seagoing paddle steamer in the world. And about 5 years ago, she was struggling for life. She needed 2.2 million to replace the boiler and the engine. And I helped donate some money to keep her going. And it just so happened that she was back in Fort William for the first time in 10 years. And so I hitched a ride on the Waverley down to Oban along Loch Lynn.
The first time Waverley visiting Fort William for 10 years. Would you please accord a hearty appreciation for all their efforts, please, in tendering to the Waverley today. Woo!
So there you have it. I couldn't help but feel like the Waverley had turned up to take me home and repay the favour. I was grinning from ear to ear on this ship, sailing towards Oban where I could get a train home. To be back on the paddle steamer Waverley was such an incredible feeling. And I found something even more incredible below decks, something that will stay with me for a very long time.
I was just looking at this poster, and then I noticed it's my name. That's my name right there. On the paddle steamer Waverley.
I was so touched that the Waverley crew had put all of the donors' names on a plaque on the wall of the ship. It was just so touching. I sat on the harbour and waved goodbye to the Waverley, eating fish and chips. So I went back from whence I came to Edinburgh to go stay with my friend who I'd already visited just about 4 days ago.
I named it.
Gave a big hug and then decided what to do next. I just decided to go back home, back to London, and see my little boy and wife. And I suppose the thing that I learned from this was that if you're not feeling great, don't push it. Just do what you feel is right. It's not about the goal, it's about the journey.
Bye-bye.
And of course, home is where the heart is.